got the date for Sony's next showcase. Sony's latest partnership just leaked. And why is Sony shutting down studios? How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. I hope you had a great weekend. This is the early week news update for everything PlayStation, and we have some awesome stuff to talk about, some really cool stuff to look forward to. The first thing I got to talk about, though, is that today is the death date of the PlayStation Plus collection. I really hope that if you've been watching this channel that you went ahead and added all of these games to your account. One of the cooler things that happened is that right at the end, the very last day, May 8th, that you were able to get these games, Sony went back in and re-added the only game that has been taken off of the PS Plus collection, which was Persona 5. Now, it's not the Royal Edition, and I don't think there's any upgrade path for the regular edition to Royal, but still, it's cool that you were able to grab this game right before the PS Plus collection goes away. I think the games that everyone should have grabbed are Resident Evil 7, God of War 2018, and of course Bloodborne. Those are just the three that come to mind, but hopefully you went ahead and did so. I don't know if it actually is still available today. I just know that Sony said they're going to be available through May 9th. You might be able to boot up your PS5 and go grab those games, but if you did, you got a great collection of games here. I also have another PSA for PlayStation Plus. This month, Chivalry 2 is the game. It's available now. This game is awesome. Ray has been talking about it for months, but it just got a huge update to coincide with it being free on PlayStation Plus, and I'm pretty sure it has crossplay as well. This is like a team deathmatch style game where you get to play as knights. Ray is awesome at this game. He was way better with a mouse and keyboard than he was with a controller because he switched over from Xbox to PC, but he gives this game like his highest recommendation, so I think you should definitely go and add it to your account if you have PlayStation Plus. The next thing I wanted to talk about is that there are ads showing up in games once again. This used to be a thing during the Xbox 360 generation. I remember playing stuff like Burnout Paradise or Need for Speed Pro Street, and I'd see ads on billboards in games. I think Need for Speed Undercover had this feature as well, and it didn't honestly really bother me all that much, especially in racing games. I mean, it would take me back to when I was a little kid playing Need for Speed Underground 2, and you would do meetups for races at Best Buy stores, you know? It was like a realism thing in car games, but one game that I really would not like to see ads for other games in is Mortal Kombat 11, which, yeah, if you boot this game up right now, whether you have the Ultimate Edition or just the base edition, you're going to see ads for Hogwarts Legacy. Now, obviously, this is to coincide with the PS4 and Xbox One release of the game, but still, I don't think it's cool at all for Warner Brothers to be including ads for games in a game that you potentially spent over $100 on with the whole Aftermath expansion and all of the DLC that has come to this game. And it's not even in the actual game. It's not like there's a billboard or something in a match that takes place in a city or something like that. It's like literally on the main menu, there's like a banner ad from a crappy website. It's like a crappy website ad just sitting at the top for Hogwarts Legacy, and it'll take you right to the store if you click on it, which I get why they're doing it. They're trying to advertise this game's second launch because it's coming out so much later on last gen consoles. But now I'm an adult and I'm spending my own money on this stuff. So if I bought a boxed PS5 copy of the Ultimate Edition of Mortal Kombat 11 and I booted it up and saw an ad for Hogwarts Legacy, I'm not gonna lie, I'd be pretty pissed off because I already get more than enough ads for games that I either already own or don't want to see ads for. Like I've unchecked from the PlayStation menu on my home screen for my PlayStation 5, which really sucks. I'm sick of seeing Fortnite ads. I'm sick of seeing ads for Resident Evil 4. I'm sick of seeing ads in general on a thing that I spent over $500 on. Like I understood it with the Kindle, right? Like you can get a cheaper Kindle and they'll have ads on the lock screen. Cool, that's fair. That's a great way to get people to read by making the device they read on cheaper. But when I'm paying $500 and I'm not getting any discount for seeing all these ads on the PlayStation 5, that's where it's getting super frustrating. So yeah, once again, I can't believe that this old game is getting ads for Hogwarts Legacy, but I really hope other publishers don't catch on because this really sucks. It's like if you went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and then they made a point to have them all stop at Burger King right after the first F-bomb in the MCU. That would really suck. I guess they did kind of do that though in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when they cut to Earth and Ego is kind of spreading everywhere. You see a very prominently featured Dairy Queen, I think. So yeah, I'll let it slide since Guardians is the best MCU trilogy, but I don't want to see that stuff going forward in games or movies. Next up, I want to talk about the top 10 games that were downloaded in April on the PlayStation Store. I usually don't talk about this because it's the same games over and over again, but there are some really cool additions to the list and a lot of them are closer to the top, so I'm excited to talk about it. So number one, Jedi Survivor. This makes sense. It ran the best out of the three platforms, I guess, on the PlayStation 5, whether you're playing on Xbox, PC, or PlayStation. I contributed to this. I downloaded the game on PlayStation instead of getting a physical copy. I saw that even if you get a physical copy, you have to download like the entire game anyway. So I was like, at 9 o'clock the night it came out, I decided to download it. This game is cool. It's a game I'm just waiting on some patches for though, because it's a Souls-like. I'm playing on Jedi Grandmaster, and having like timing based parrying really sucks when the frame rate is flying all over the place. But yeah, super excited to see a Star Wars game at number 1. I heard that it beat the digital sales at launch of Jedi Fallen Order by like 30%, which is really cool because we heard that other news story that box copies, I think, were down 10% from that first game. Now it makes sense. More people are just downloading the game than buying it physical. Next up on the list is Dead Island 2. This is the one I was excited about. This is one of the best zombie games I've ever played. And I will totally admit that leading up to this, I was not really excited for it, but I ended up getting a review key for the game. I tried it out, and not only did I find that it performed incredibly, whether I was on PS5 or PC, it also had great combat, a great soundtrack, and something I really loved about it is that it's not an open world. It's actually got like a hub world that's up, I think, in Beverly Hills or Bel Air, I forget which one, and then you kind of like work your way out from there into different levels that are different regions of LA. And as someone who's lived in LA for about 7 or 8 years now, they nailed it. Like, there are certain spots that really gave me that like, whoa, deja vu type of feeling. And it's not just like big buildings like the Chinese Theater when you eventually get to Hollywood. There was like smaller buildings in Venice Beach that I totally recognized and was honestly shocked that they were able to put those in there. Something else I had a ton of fun with that game was actually going and doing these lost and found missions to get legendary items. There's a legendary version of pretty much every archetype of weapon in the game, but you can get a legendary AK, and it's like totally awesome. I thought it was great that you get guns so much earlier in this one than the original Dead Island. Of course, the performance was great. Another thing that I think deserves a shout out is the soundtrack. There's great music in this game, whether it's the intro cutscene or just the menu music. Having a zombie game had menu music from Karen O, I was like, this is a game made for me. It totally matched the vibe of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. So if you want a recommendation of a game that looks and runs great and you're just into zombies and horror like me, I cannot recommend playing Dead Island 2 enough. My friend Grayson and I did co-op for like half the game, and I highly recommend that experience because it advances your quests in your own game, even if you jump into someone else's, and you keep all of your loot. So yeah, I give the game a solid 9 out of 10. Excited for the DLC. Bring on Dead Island 3. And then the third thing that was super interesting to me on this list is that over on the PlayStation 4, in both the US and Canada, The Last of Us Part 2 is topping the list. They separate the list out between PS5 and PS4, even though you can play PS4 games on the PlayStation 5. I would really like to know how high The Last of Us Part 2 ranked overall, comparing it to PS5 games, right? Like, that'd be really cool to know, but unfortunately Sony doesn't break that out. Still, I am really curious how many of these people who watched The Last of Us TV show and then wanted to know what happens next in the story, so they went to the PlayStation Store, saw a discount on The Last of Us Part 2 and picked it up, really think of that game. Obviously, it had a lot of contention when it came out. People are going back and forth left and right over the story beats in this game, especially obviously what happens to Joel. Spoilers. So yeah, I'm really curious, if people still love The Last of Us as much as they did watching the show after playing the second game, but also if they are going to keep things as they are in the game when the show's second season comes out. I honestly didn't see a lot of backlash resurface though with people playing this game once again, so that could be a good sign for The Last of Us Part 2 and its plot points. Next on my news list here, let's talk about how Sony just shut down a studio, because this is honestly kind of surprising, especially when we just had a news story the other day in the weekend video about Sony diverting even more money over to PlayStation. But looking into this a little bit more, I think it is kind of obvious why this studio was shut down. The studio I'm talking about is called Pixel Opus. Their two games were called Entwined and Concrete Genie. I'm just gonna be real, I didn't play either of these games. Entwined was like an ethereal type of game that didn't really interest me, and then I was kind of interested in Concrete Genie, but honestly it just didn't really look like a game I would enjoy. It came out back in 2014, and I'd say between the two, that was the one that had the most marketing. I remember some people really liked it because it was an open world, I think combat free game where you got to use a paintbrush to make graffiti on walls, but it's been like, I don't know what, like almost 10 years since that game came out at this point, which is crazy. I would assume that they've at least pitched a couple games or helped out other studios behind the scenes, and Sony just took a look at it and said this is not materializing in the right way and decided to shut them down, and possibly, I would guess, divert a lot of the funds they were spending on this studio to other studios. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the story that I thought this might put some other studios on the chopping block. One of those would be the people who made Destruction Destruction All-Stars. I forget what the studio is called, but they went from Destruction All-Stars, which was a game that went from being a full-priced, I'm pretty sure, game over to PlayStation Plus and didn't really light the world on fire. They went from that to working on a Twisted Metal game, and Sony basically took them off that project and gave it to another developer. So I would assume that if Sony is looking at studios to shut down, that would be one that's next on the chopping block. And then after that, I would guess that Media Molecule would be next. Not only is the game Dreams that they spent an entire console generation on shutting down, but every big creative talent from that studio that started the studio back when they were putting out stuff like Little Big Planet has now left that studio. So there's not really much there in terms of like identity anymore. And all their games basically before Dreams didn't really sell all that well. So I think if Sony is shutting down studios like Pixel Opus, they will be shutting down more studios. We saw them do this a lot during the PS3 and PS4 generation, and it's really because they want to divert the funds that they were spending on these like 7 and 6 score games to studios that are going to continue to give them 9s and 10s. And honestly, as much as it sucks to see people losing their jobs, I totally see the reasoning here, and I think Microsoft would benefit from making hard decisions like this about some of their studios that aren't working out as well as they should be. And the last news story I have for you guys today is kind of like a two-pronged thing, and I am really excited about it. So the first thing is that E3 is right around the corner, and one of the biggest leaks we've had so far is that Sony is going to be partnering up with Konami in a major way for a lot of exclusive games. We know that Silent Hill 2 Remake is going to be exclusive to PS5 and PC, which is awesome, but it looks like the new Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake that's been rumored for a long time is finally going to be announced, and that will be exclusive to PS5 and PC. And then finally there will be a new Castlevania announced, and that will be exclusive to PS5 and PC as well. I've honestly been calling this and hoping for it for a while now, mainly because I love all of Konami's games and I associate all of them with different PlayStation consoles. I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the first time on my PS Vita. I played Metal Gear Solid, the entire series basically, on my Vita, because you could do the PS1 version of the first game, you could get the HD collection of 2 and 3, and then for Peace Walker you could download the PSP version onto the Vita and play through that. And then on my PS4 I played Ground Zeroes and The Phantom Pain, and then on my PS3 I played Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Solid Rising Revengeance. So yeah, I played the entire Metal Gear Solid series on PlayStation consoles, and then of course Silent Hill is just always tied with PlayStation, right? I'm really excited about this. Obviously it sucks for Microsoft fans of these games, but I don't think you ever really bought an Xbox assuming that the vast majority of these games, especially Metal Gear, would be coming to Xbox Series X and not PlayStation. And then the next thing is we now know when this showcase is supposedly going to happen. And then the next update is, alongside these game leaks, we also might know when this showcase is going to happen, thanks to Jeff Grubb. He's saying that it's going to happen the week of May 25th. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. The Xbox showcase, I'm pretty sure, is happening June 12th. Me and Ray are going to be there. So yeah, Sony coming in hot before that with a bunch of game announcements sounds great. As for what I expect to be there, obviously these new Konami games should definitely be there. So the Silent Hill 2 Remake, a new Castlevania, the Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. Spider-Man 2 is definitely going to get a lot of showcase time. I would assume it's coming out at the end of this year. Sony is adamant about that it's going to come out towards the end of this year. That makes sense. Insomniac puts out really good, technically sound games, and they're really just expanding, it seems, on that first Spider-Man game. You can also go pick up Spider-Man Remastered now as a standalone game, and if you have any version of the original Spider-Man game, you can upgrade for $10, which is awesome, and I highly recommend doing it. And then there's smaller stuff like Helldivers 2, and we might finally get a reveal of The Last of Us Factions. I really hope that gets revealed. It's been a little long, in my opinion, since that was announced for it to be taking this long. Of course, they're making it bigger than they initially thought it was going to be. But yeah, that's all the news we have in this new PlayStation showcase. I'm excited to see the return of Konami, and I'm really super excited to see more of The Last of Us Factions. But I'd love to hear what you're excited about in the comments below.